Hello everyone, I am Ajahn Nyaniko, and I'm from Abhayagiri Monastery in California. Luangpur Virdamo has asked me to lead a somewhat shortened program this morning, and apologies that one of our Thai Krupa Ajahns isn't leading this, but Luangpur Virdamo thought that maybe if I led it, since this is normally an English language program, that would be useful, helpful. So we'll start with just 30 minutes of meditation. And I will give a little bit of guidance in the beginning for that meditation, and we can meditate together for 30 minutes. After that, I'll just give some brief instruction, and then we can open it up for Q&A. And also in the Q&A, people would be welcome to ask anything, but particularly if you had any questions about how the Thai Ajahns practice or how they do things, then you'd be welcome to ask all those questions that you might feel hesitant to ask them directly. So that would be welcome during the Q&A session. And then we'll try to wrap up around 10:30, 10:40. 10:40 would be okay if we go a little bit over. Is there anyone here who is new to meditation? So everyone's meditated before. Okay, that's helpful. So at the beginning of the meditation, generally it's setting an intention, and also from the outset, it's good to know that meditation doesn't mean to stop thinking. So to let go of any preconceived ideas about stopping thinking, because most meditation involves well-directed thinking, skillfully directed thinking. For example, the Satipatthana Sutta, the Buddha says, think this way, think that way, consider this, consider that. Or when Luangpur Cha would give a Dhamma talk, he would say, think about this, think about that, consider this, consider these teachings. So most of the meditations prescribed by the Buddha are analytical meditations. And even Anapanasati employs the thought, but it's skillfully directed thought, knowing, breathing in long, this is a long breath. We actually think that, breathing out long. This is breathing out a long breath, breathing in short. We know, breathing in short, breathing out short. We know, breathing out short. So that being said, it doesn't mean overly thinking though, so we don't have to think in terms of noting. If we're constantly noting things, that can get a little bit crazy. So we don't want to overthink things, but it is okay to use thought and necessary. When we think about if we do death contemplation, for example, in order to bring the mind completely into the present and let go of any longing for the future or any ideas or regret or nostalgia regarding the past, we can do something like death contemplation in order to bring ourselves into the present, and that can be done by thinking that the Buddha taught death contemplation. Death is inevitable. It will happen for sure at some point, and it's completely unsure when it will happen and how it will happen. So we use our thought to remind ourselves of that, and we look for the result. The result we're looking for from doing death contemplation is not to become melancholy or sad, but it's to give ourselves a sense of urgency to do what's wholesome and good in the present with the precious time that we have. And the paradox of meditation is that when we do these meditations where we think in line with the ways that the Buddha is teaching us to think in the suttas, and we follow the recommendations of our Ajahns in terms of how to hold things, how to think, how to hold the mind will settle in a very natural way. So we can't we can force the mind into submission. We can force the mind to stop thinking, but it's not going to be peaceful. So setting the intention to be at ease. It's not that not thinking equals ease. That's not how the mind works. But the sense of ease and well-being and happiness can be present whether there's thought present or not. The Buddha never taught that not thinking is the precursor to happiness. That doesn't occur anywhere in the suttas. So to focus on the breath or do whatever meditation is familiar to us, whatever we've been practicing with, and yet holding it in a way that the mind is settling in a very natural way according to its nature, and it will settle to whatever place it wants to settle to. Just giving it that little push with the focusing the attention on the feeling of the breath. So we do put some intentionality into this to focus our attention onto the feeling of the breath, whether it's coming in and out at the nostrils or the stomach rising and falling. Any of these ways of focus are valid as long as we're feeling the breath in some way, shape, or form. That's the anchor for the mind. And we might use Butto if we're familiar with the Thai forest tradition, mentally reciting But with the in-breath, mentally reciting To with the out-breath. So But, To, that means the one who knows, the awakened one. It's both Samatha and Vipassana linked together. So the brief time that we have to meditate together, just to try to allow the mind to settle in a very natural way. So we'll end the sit there, and a note that when the mind gets empty, it sometimes just whatever is closest gets pulled into it, and that's natural, and it's not actually a problem or a big issue. It's just that the minds and the mental objects and the moods, they come and go like the clouds passing in the sky. But we don't need to get upset by the clouds or try to wave them away quicker, but that they just pass naturally, and thoughts are very much the same. They just pass by in a very natural way, and the important part is to try to keep the body and mind calm, whatever thoughts come into the mind. That's how we do the meditation. And it may have happened that we had a good meditation experience in the past. Maybe the first time we meditated, we had a very good experience. Or one of the first times we meditated, we felt very peaceful and happy, and that we got hooked on meditation. But then trying to recreate that experience, we aren't able to get back to it. And because those experiences only come about when the mind settles in a very natural way, those don't come about through fabricating them with our mind. Or we may have read certain meditation experiences that great practitioners of the past have had, and then we try to recreate those in our mind, but those only come about through a ripening of the practice. So really the good way to meditate and to hold our practice in general, our daily life practice, is just to keep going. One of the most common pieces of advice from Thai Ajahns is Bai Lui Lui, which just means keep going, just keep going. And if we just keep going, if we just don't give up, and we keep going, we keep learning, the mind, the heart will learn how to do it. And we try to consciously relax the body and mind anytime the body or the mind gets tense, or there's some sort of pain in the body, suffering in the mind, stress in the mind, stress felt in the body as well, then we can use the Anapanasati to consciously relax those feelings, and our life can become much more endurable. So I'll just open it up. If anybody has any questions, now is the time. If anybody would like to ask anything. Yeah, I have a lot of experience with the hindrances, and they're very natural. This is a very natural thing that arises, and it is just something that happens. It's how we learn. So learning always entails frustration, and frustration is a big part of learning. So when we try to learn how to meditate and train the mind, it'll be frustrating because we might come up against things that, more often than not, what's happening is the hindrances were just latent. Those were latent there already. It's not that they got worse because we're meditating, but we're stirring it up. We're seeing things in the mind at a deeper level that are always there, but because we normally just follow them, even without thinking about it, we normally follow our moods and follow our preferences, follow our mental states. When we follow them and we're swept up by them, then we don't see them, but the moment we stop and we try to meditate, then there's still this momentum moving forward of the mind doing its thing. So then we stop and then we see it sometimes for the first time, and we're not actually following it, and it's trying to pull us this way and that. So the mind is trying to pull us this way and that, and when we meditate, we're not following it, but it's trying to get us to follow it. It's trying to move us this way and that. And so really just to learn how to, the first part is just to be mindful and just to see it. And the first step in overcoming the hindrances is to cultivate mindfulness, cultivate a sense of clear knowing or clear seeing, and learn from the hindrances. So rather than just immediately try to get rid of them, the most efficacious way to move forward is to first be mindful of them and learn about them, because if we say a hindrance arises of either sensual desire or a hindrance of anger, or just the mind is just incessant thinking about this and that, whether it's work or family or some the unpleasant thing that somebody said to us this morning or yesterday, and the mind can't drop it. It's more about learning from it. So we might say, oh, well, the Buddha said to, destroy anger, push away sensuality and all that. But to do that, we have to know it. We have to be mindful of it. We can't just push it away, because in trying to get rid of hindrances, then we're cultivating other hindrances. So we might have the hindrance of sensual desire arising in the mind, and then we think, oh, this is really awful, and this is harming my meditation, so I need to get rid of this immediately. And then we end up cultivating the hindrance of ill will. And so the hindrances, these things, and they're taught in a certain order, these 5 hindrances. Sensual desire, which could be any form of sense craving, through craving for sights, sounds, smells, tastes, tactile sensations, or even a craving for good and wonderful ideas. and that would be sensual craving. So, and then ill will, then there's sloth and torpor, then there's restlessness and worry, and then there's doubt. And I've found that when I do periods of solitary retreat, those hindrances tend to arise almost in order. And usually it'll, the first couple days will be sense desire, that'll calm down. Then there might be some irritation and ill will. Then there will be some drowsiness and so on. Then there will be some restlessness and worry. Then there will be some doubt. And then after that, the retreat will almost be over, but then it'll be okay. But then there is some mental clarity. Sometimes, too, they lead into each other. So we find that sense craving, when not fulfilled, can lead to ill will, can lead to anger. And a mind that is inclined towards or obsessed with anger tends to make us tired and sap our vitality, sap our energy. And so that's sloth and torpor. And then the mind that is sleepy and tired a lot of the time becomes restless and starts having all sorts of random thoughts. And then the mind that is restless then gives rise to all sorts of doubts. Maybe this practice doesn't work. Maybe I'm not doing the right thing. So those hindrances also arise in a certain order. And especially the last one, doubt, can actually cause a tremendous amount of suffering for us, because then we don't really know if what we're doing is the right thing and so on. So a lot of it is just coming back to mindfulness and just knowing them, getting to know them at first. That's really the first step. Yeah. Yes? Was that in the Q&A after the meal yesterday? So that was Longpo Chandi. Okay, yeah, very good. Yeah, to sit through pain is to actually do that and have it be useful, you have to be ready for something like that. So normally we would say to push it a little bit, but to not push it too much. Push it a little bit, don't get up and move right away if you're experiencing some sort of pain, but then don't push it too much. That's normally the advice we give for that. But then at a more advanced level, then sitting through pain might be very, very useful. And we will eventually have the realization how much of our pain is actually mental. And it seems physical, but actually, those of us who have been meditating for a long time, you may have had the experience of having knee pain and then the mind calming down and the knee pain disappearing, even though the perception of the body is still there. And I remember this happened with me where it wasn't a very deep meditation, but the mind just settled a little bit and any knee pain I had disappeared, and I was trying to actually find the pain, and I couldn't even give rise to it. It was just gone. So once the mind felt happy, and there wasn't any tension in the mind, then the pain in the body seemed to disappear. So sometimes the pain's in the body, it seems it's in the body, but actually it's in the mind. So, and we tend to not acknowledge just how much of our pain is actually mental. And there's so many things that happen in our life, so much trauma and pain that can happen in our lives, and so much unpleasantness that it builds up over time, and the mind is constantly resisting and trying to get away from and trying to avoid situations that we don't want to come into contact with, subtly fearing situations that we don't want to come into contact with, and then that builds up tension in the body over time. So just when we come to meditation and the mind actually starts to let go of some of those things, we'll be amazed how comfortable the body can feel. So this is what they call the Dhamma Osata, or the Dhamma medicine. But at a more subtle, more advanced level that Luang Por Chandi was talking about yesterday, where actually sitting through pain and having it be useful, even to the point of thinking, oh, is this self-mortification that the Buddha was talking about that he wasn't recommending? Well, actually, when the Buddha talks about self-mortification, when he was following his austerities, the pain he was experiencing is probably something that almost nobody could endure, even our Ajahns. You know, the pain that he inflicted on himself was so intense that probably almost nobody in the world could endure it. But in terms of, Luang Por Chandi talking about sitting through pain, or we may know about Luang Ta Mahabua talking about sitting through pain and having great insights through that, we have to have a basis of great happiness and ease already to be able to do that. So there has to be a really, really strong base of samadhi already to be able to sit through pain and have it be useful. If we're just forcing ourselves to do it and then getting more and more tense, then that is the self-mortification, and we're either going to end up not being able to sit cross-legged for the rest of our lives, having to sit in chairs for tearing our meniscus or whatever, sitting in chairs for the rest of our lives. But with Luang Por Chandi, what he's talking about yesterday, that's more where there's an incredible base of samadhi, an incredible base of piti sukha and happiness already present. And then based on that, then they are able to make experiences like that useful. Yeah, Albert. Yeah, that's a very good question. It's good to know from the outset that when the Buddha talks about the jhanas, those are all fabricated states. And even though they are considered temporary liberations of mind, and they're great states of ease and well-being and peace and happiness, they are fabricated. And mindfulness is also a fabrication. So mindfulness is a very important fabrication, though, because normally when we're fabricating things in our mind according to the world, then we're fabricating things in terms of like and dislike. So if we like something, then we're moving towards it. So that's the fabrication of attachment. If we dislike something, we're moving away from it. That's the fabrication of aversion. But then the fabrication of mindfulness is what's called the imperturbable kamma. So there's different types of kamma. There's the kamma of attraction, kamma of aversion, but there's also kamma leading to the ending of kamma. That's what mindfulness is. And that's what the Noble Eightfold Path is. It's a very special type of kamma. So when we use this fabrication of mindfulness, that's where, yes, we do say it's settling in a very natural way and not creating the state, and yet it's that fabrication of mindfulness that's leading to those states. So there can be a sense of skill that's built up in the art of meditation or the art of practice. So the sense of really refined skill where you're not hoping for a result. That's part of getting there, not hoping for a result. So if you're trying to, say, create that deep state, that deep recollection, or that deep samadhi, if you're just trying to create it based on a description of it, you're not going to get to it. But if you recollect how you got there before, in terms of the letting go and then not hoping for a result and so on, yes, that could be the way to do it. That you would, if you've had those experiences before, you could recollect and contemplate, how did I get there before? How did I get to that state before? And then you would know, oh, it's just forgetting about results, just let go of the past and future, rest in the present, don't hope for any sort of particular mental state to arise, and then the mind could start to settle in that natural way. Yes, it's still a fabrication, but it's a more important type of fabrication in terms of it's the type of fabrication that's moving toward the Dhamma in terms of not following the likes and dislikes. Of course, the likes and dislikes, the attachment and the aversion is going to become more subtle. It's going to grab onto those deep meditations. It's going to grab onto those pleasant experiences, and then that's going to be a more subtle form of hindrance. So yes, that will happen and that'll keep happening, but it's certainly better than, say, not having a peaceful mind at all. So we just keep going in that direction, keep learning. And then the mindfulness, something LP Liem was saying the other day was that the mindfulness is such an integral part of samadhi that they're really working together. And so as the mind has more and more of a firm and stable basis, which is what the Thai definition of samadhi is, dang jai mun, the well-established or the firmly established mind, then as that happens, the mindfulness is going to get more strong. And as the mindfulness gets more strong and starts to notice how things are working in a more refined way, then the samadhi is also going to get more strong. The mind's going to be more firmly established. So one thing that's also good to think about or recollect is the results that we're supposed to be looking for. It's good to actually learn about what are the proper and the improper results. So say an improper result of meditation is if we start feeling unmoored and start feeling like we're going crazy. That's not the result we're looking for from meditation. That means we've been holding the mind in a way that maybe there's not enough mindfulness. The result we are looking for, and especially if the perception of not self is starting to get established, that the result we're looking for is, and this is a feeling that will come about through starting to have an intuitive sense of not self, is an incredible sense of solidity and confidence. So we wouldn't think we would have solidity and confidence with a realization of not self, but actually the more you contemplate it, the more it makes sense, because with the sense of self and the sense of our perception of ourselves and who we think we are, we're constantly having to refabricate that and prop that up and act that out all the time, and that takes a lot of effort, and it's a lot of stress, and it's a big burden. But then when there's a realization of not self, we don't have to prop anything up. The Dhamma is self-sustaining. The Dhamma doesn't need anything to prop it up. The truth of the way things are is self-sustaining, so it takes no effort. And it's, what a relief. I don't have to be somebody. I don't have to be somebody for anybody. And and there'll be that sense of stability and confidence with that. So those are all fabricated, but then the Buddha also talks about in the suttas that there's a way to catapult oneself into the stream entry, which is, he talks about, I don't like to use the word jhana too much because it's kind of a hackneyed term and there's a lot of different views about it, but he talks about entering into the first jhana where you still have thinking, and you can still have applied and sustained thinking, vitakka vichara, and so you can still contemplate while in that state, whereas the second, the thinking is settled to a point where you wouldn't be able to do a contemplation in that state. So the one enters into the first jhana and so on. It has applied sustained thought, rapture and happiness, born of seclusion, one-pointedness. And while in that state, one directs their mind and says, even this amazing happiness and even this amazing samadhi that I've been able to bring the mind to, even however sublime this is, even this is still impermanent and will pass away and is not to be clung to. And if you're able to have that recollection while in that state, that can catapult the mind into stream entry or into insight into impermanence, which is how it's defined usually. So yeah, they are fabricated, but they're very good fabricated states. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, absolutely. Prayers, well-wishing for others who are sick. That's actually been scientifically proven that people who get prayed for recover more often than people who don't get prayed for in any religion. So yeah, absolutely. Well-wishing prayers absolutely has a result for those who are sick. And I've talked to people who have experienced this. One of our contractors is a heavy equipment operator he's retired now, but when he was still working, he got sick suddenly and he went to the hospital. He had contracted spinal meningitis, and was dying. It can kill you in like 24 hours. This horrible infection that can get into your spine and brain. And it's a Christian family. They were all praying for him, and he had an experience of very vivid experience of while he was unconscious in a coma and dying. He had a very vivid experience of a memory of when he was an infant in a crib and his mother over, sort of looking after him, and how he felt incredibly safe and felt like he had a refuge. And when he came to, the disease had gone. All his hair had turned white, but he survived, and he attributed that to the prayers of his family and friends. Huge family. So a lot of people praying for him. And sharing merit, certainly. Yeah, I mean, there's the story that Luang Por Pisano likes to tell of an incident that happened in Thailand many years ago. There was a fishing boat in the south that there was a storm and the boat was destroyed, and everybody died on the boat except this one guy who worked on the boat, and he held on to a piece of wood from the boat, and he was lost out at sea, and nobody knew where the boat was, and so his family had assumed he was dead, and so they went to the monastery every day, and they were sharing the merit with him, thinking he had died, and then after 7 days of going without food and water, he was found, and he was rescued, and he was taken to safety, and he survived. So they interviewed him, and then when they interviewed him, they asked him what was his experience of going without food and water for 7 days and floating out at sea. And then he said, well, it was really interesting because it was really horrible, and I was so hungry and so thirsty and so parched, except every day at about 11 a.m., I felt completely full and satiated, and I felt that I was going to be okay. And the timing coincided exactly to when they were offering meals to the monastery and dedicating the merit to their relative. So I think that shows pretty clearly that it does have an effect. So to think that, whenever we bring somebody to mind with a sense of metta and goodwill, that it can actually have a real effect on them. Okay, one more. Yeah.
Can you please say the prayer to Amara Suri?
Oh, all the time. Sure. And what was your question also? Maybe I can combine it.
Yes, thank you. The Buddha had back pain and went into a past life. I was wondering if in China, the Thai monks also explore their own past lives for self-awareness?
Not many people can see their past lives, but some people are able to through their meditation. And the back pain, it's say even with the Buddha, the Buddha saw that it may have been from a past life, but also I think it was from his striving. He actually did harm himself when during his severe austerities. So I have a theory that the Buddha suffered from sciatica, actually. So yes, we can all keep Amarasiri in thought. Did you have something in mind as to how to dedicate merit to him? Yeah. Yeah, certainly. I'm constantly dedicating merit to Venerable Amasiri. But yeah, sometimes it's even if you dedicate merit, it's no guarantee that somebody will get better. But he is a very bright being, so I think his sense of being held and not being lonely and having a huge family, huge Dhamma family, that comes from all of our dedications. And he's very generous too, and it's very natural that somebody who's generous gets the results of those types of dedications as well. So I think rather than doing anything out loud, we could probably just hold him in our thoughts and wish him well, and just pay respects to him and let him know we're want him to get well. We're thinking of him. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I think that's good for today. Our Ajahns will be showing up soon, so they'll be here any minute. So I've never done one of these, so I don't know if there's anything special that's done at the end, but I think we can just end it there.